Before a human being ever dared to touch the stars, another mind, another consciousness made the journey first. This is the story of Ham, a chimpanzee taken from the jungles of Africa and placed at the very center of humanity's greatest adventure, the space race. It is a story of incredible science, of a strange and unlikely friendship, and of the quiet, unwitting hero who paved the way for every astronaut that followed. Tonight, we will experience his journey, from the familiar world of the jungle to the terrifying, beautiful, and silent emptiness of space. Before we begin, take a deep breath and let the room grow quiet. If these soft journeys bring you peace, feel free to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always comforting to know who's resting alongside us tonight. Now, close your eyes and let the wilderness unfold. Our story begins not in space, but with a question. In the late 1950s, as humanity prepared to take its first tentative steps into the great dark void, scientists faced a profound and dangerous unknown. They had built the rockets, the capsules, the machines of spaceflight, but they did not know what this new and hostile environment would do to a living mind. Could a consciousness evolved over millions of years under the steady pull of Earth's gravity still function in the strange, weightless world of orbit? Could a person think clearly, perform a task, or even remain sane when subjected to the crushing G-forces of a rocket launch? To risk a human life to find out was a gamble too great to take. And so, they needed a pioneer. They needed a test pilot who was not a man, but who was close enough to provide the answers they so desperately needed. The choice, after much scientific debate, fell upon the chimpanzee. There were several crucial reasons for this. First and foremost was the profound biological similarity between their species and our own. Chimpanzees share roughly 98% of our DNA. Their circulatory system, their respiratory system, and their neurological pathways are all incredibly similar to a human's. This meant that data on how a chimpanzee's body reacted to the stresses of spaceflight would be an incredibly accurate and valuable predictor of how a human astronaut would react. They were the perfect biological stand-in, a close cousin on the great tree of life who could undertake this dangerous journey for us. Beyond the biological similarities, there was the matter of the mind. The chimpanzee is a creature of profound intelligence, capable of learning, of problem-solving, and of using tools. Scientists knew they were not sending up a simple passenger. They needed a pilot, an active participant who could perform a complex task, whose success or failure would be a clear measure of cognitive function in a new and hostile environment. They needed a creature that could be trained, that could understand a puzzle, and that could demonstrate that a mind could still work beyond the comforting blue veil of the Earth's atmosphere. And finally, there was temperament. Chimpanzees, for all their intelligence, are also incredibly strong and can be prone to fits of aggression. But the scientists knew that some were calmer, more curious, and more resilient than others. They believed they could find a candidate with the perfect combination of intelligence and a calm, focused disposition, the mysterious and hard-to-define quality that the human test pilots of the day were just beginning to call the right stuff. They were not looking for an animal. They were looking for an astronaut. And so, the search for this quiet, intelligent, and brave pioneer began. The journey for the first chimpanzee in space began far from the sterile laboratories of NASA. It began in the warm, humid forests of Cameroon, West Africa. In July of 1959, a group of animal specialists captured a small, healthy, and exceptionally bright young male chimpanzee, approximately 2 years old. He was given the designation number 65 and was sent to a specialized facility in Miami, Florida. Here, he joined a small but growing colony of other chimpanzees that had been sourced for the burgeoning American space program. This was the initial pool of candidates, a collection of young, healthy apes who were about to become the unsung heroes of a great global adventure. From this larger colony in Florida, a smaller, more elite group of 40 chimpanzee candidates was selected to be sent to Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. This was the true beginning of their strange, new life. The warm, humid, and vibrant world of the jungle was replaced by the dry, sterile, and highly controlled environment of a military research facility. Here, the 40 chimpanzees began their initial phase of training. They were not just animals in a zoo. They were now officially enlisted members of the space program, the first astrochimps. They were given the best possible care, a diet carefully designed by veterinarians, and clean, safe enclosures. But they were also now subjects in a great and important scientific experiment. The purpose of this initial phase was to acclimate the chimpanzees to their new human handlers and to identify the individuals with the best potential for the difficult training that lay ahead. The trainers and doctors observed them closely, noting their individual personalities, their intelligence, and their emotional resilience. Some of the chimpanzees were aggressive and resistant to the training. Others were timid and easily frightened. But a small number of them showed a remarkable aptitude for this new and bizarre life. They were curious, they were quick to learn, and they seemed to form genuine, trusting bonds with their human trainers. Among this small group of promising candidates, number 65 stood out. He was smaller than some of the other males, but he was exceptionally bright, calm, and good-natured. He showed a remarkable lack of aggression and a high degree of curiosity about the strange, new puzzles his human companions presented to him. He was a fast learner, and he seemed to genuinely enjoy the challenges and the rewards that came with them. The scientists and trainers quickly recognized that he was a special individual, a prime candidate for the historic mission that was to come, designed to teach a creature of the jungle the specific mechanical skills it would need to operate a machine in outer space. The core of the training was a process known as operant conditioning, a method of teaching that uses a system of rewards and punishments to shape behavior. For the chimpanzees, this system was very straightforward. The reward for performing a task correctly was a small, delicious, and highly motivating banana pellet. The punishment for failing to perform the task, or performing it incorrectly, was a mild but unpleasant electric shock to the soles of their feet. The goal of this training was not to be cruel. The punishments were designed to be just unpleasant, enough to create a clear consequence for failure, while the rewards were designed to be a powerful motivator for success. The chimpanzees, with their high intelligence, learned the rules of this strange game very quickly. They learned that a correct action led to a pleasant outcome, and an incorrect action led to an unpleasant one. It was a simple, binary system that they could easily understand and master. This process was crucial, for it created a reliable and predictable set of behaviors that could be tested under the extreme stress of spacevac. The training took place in a strange and sterile classroom. Each chimpanzee would be strapped into a small, form-fitting chair, a couch that was a replica of the one they would use in the space capsule. In front of them was a small console with lights and levers. For many hours a day, day after day, for months on end, they would practice their lessons. They were taught to watch the lights, to respond to specific cues, and to perform specific physical actions. Their every response was measured, timed, and recorded. The scientists were gathering a mountain of data, building a performance profile for each individual chimpanzee. For you, the young chimp known as number 65, this process was not a torment. It was a strange, new, and interesting puzzle. You learned that the strange, two-legged creatures who were your new family would reward you for playing this game well. You formed a close bond with your primary trainer, a human who showed you kindness and affection. And you learned that you were very, very good at this game. You enjoyed the challenge, you enjoyed the rewards, and you enjoyed the praise of your new human friend. You were, in your own quiet and unassuming way, a strata, student in the strangest school on Earth. The most important lesson in this strange school was the lever task. It was the specific, measurable, and critical experiment that your entire mission was built around. The task itself was simple, but its implications were immense. On the control panel in front of you, there were two lights, a white one and a blue one, and two levers. The white light was a baseline, a simple signal that was often on, but every 20 seconds, for 5 seconds, the blue light would flash. Your job was to see that flashing blue light and, within those 5 seconds, pull the right-hand lever. The great, unanswered question of the early space program was whether a living mind could still function in the strange and hostile environment of space. Would the crushing G-forces of launch, or the bizarre, disorienting sensation of weightlessness, cause an astronaut to become confused, to be unable to think, to be unable to perform the complex tasks necessary to fly their spacecraft? Your performance on this simple lever task would be the answer to that question. If you could see the light, make the decision, and perform the physical act of pulling the lever in the harsh environment of space, then a human astronaut could too. And you were a master of this task. Your reaction times were incredible, often less than a second. You learned the rhythm of the lights, the feel of the lever in your hand. You performed the task with a calm, focused, and reliable efficiency that impressed all of your trainers. You were generating the data that would give the scientists the confidence they needed to send a human into orbit. Every successful pull of that lever was a small but crucial step in the great journey of mankind to the stars. Of course, you did not know any of this. To you, it was simply a game, a puzzle, a way to earn a tasty treat, and the approval of your human friend. You had no concept of space, of rockets, of the great global competition that was the Cold War. You only knew that when the blue light flashed, you were supposed to pull the lever, and you were very, very good at it. It was this simple, reliable, and excellent performance that would ultimately punch your ticket to a place that no living creature from your world had ever been before. After many months of intensive training, the time for the final selection arrived. From the initial pool of 40 chimpanzee candidates, the scientists had narrowed the field down to a small, elite group of 6. You, number 65, were in that final group. All 6 of you were the best of the best. You had all mastered the lever task. You had all endured the strange and terrifying machines. Now, a final, single candidate had to be chosen to be the pioneer, the one who would actually make the historic flight. The selection was based on a final, rigorous series of tests designed to find the one individual with the perfect combination of skill and temperament. The final tests were the most difficult. The centrifuge runs, which simulated the G-forces of launch, were longer and more intense. The trainers watched your vital signs closely, looking for the candidate whose heart rate remained the calmest, whose body showed the least amount of stress. You also underwent sessions in a shake table, a machine that violently shook your capsule to simulate the vibrations of a rocket launch. And through it all, you were still required to perform your lever-pulling task. The scientists were looking for the creature that could think clearly and act decisively, even in the midst of a violent, chaotic, and terrifying sensory assault. And in these final, grueling tests, you proved that you were the one. Your performance was nearly flawless. Your reaction times on the lever task remained incredibly fast, even under the most stressful conditions. While other candidates would sometimes become agitated or aggressive during the tests, you remained remarkably calm, focused, and good-natured. You had a resilience, a mental fortitude that was truly exceptional. You possessed, in every measurable way, the right stuff. And so, the decision was made. Number 65 would be the one to fly. On the morning of the mission, you were given a new name. You were no longer just a number. You were now Ham, a name derived from the acronym of the laboratory that had been your home and your school, the Holloman Aerospace Medical Center. The name was a sign of respect, of affection, a recognition of your new status. You were not just a test subject anymore. You were Ham, the Astrachim. You were the pilot. You were the pioneer. You were the one who would go first. You did not understand the meaning of the new name, nor the weight of the history that was now resting on your small, furry shoulders. You only knew that you're human. Friends were treating you with a new sense of reverence and a deep, quiet, and profound respect. Let us now turn our attention from the living, breathing creature to the incredible, purpose-built world of machines that was created for him, be forged into real, functioning hardware. And at the very heart of this new, mechanical world was a single term as the couch. This was not a soft, comfortable piece of furniture. It was a marvel of ergonomic engineering, a custom-made, form-fitting seat molded from fiberglass, perfectly contoured to the specific shape of Ham's small chimpanzee body. Every curve, every dip, every support was designed to cradle him, to hold him, to protect him from the immense and violent forces he was about to face. The primary purpose of this couch was to help. The scientists at NASA knew that the acceleration of the Redstone rocket would subject its passenger to a force many times the normal pull of Earth's gravity. For a living body, this is a dangerous and brutal experience. The couch was designed to distribute these immense forces evenly across Ham's entire body, ensuring that no single part would be subjected to a breaking strain. It was a suit of armor, not of steel, but of perfectly molded fiberglass, a second skin that would become a part of him during his journey. Straps made of a strong, woven material would hold him securely in place. A gentle but firm embrace that would prevent him from being thrown about during the violent vibrations of the launch. For Ham, this couch was just another strange and confusing part of his new life. He was taught, with a gentle and patient repetition, to lie back in it, to allow the trainers to secure the straps, to remain still and calm. To him, it was a strange and hard-backed nest, a place of confinement, but also, in a strange way, a place of security. He learned to associate the couch with his lessons, with the flashing lights and the banana pellets, and with the calm, reassuring presence of his human trainer. He did not know that this strange, white chair was a piece of cutting-edge technology, a masterpiece of biomechanical engineering. He only knew that it was his work chair, the place where he played the strange and interesting games that his new life consisted of, and so, most important piece of the great mechanical puzzle of spaceflight. It was the crucial interface between the soft, fragile, organic body of a living creature and the hard, violent, and powerful reality of a rocket launch. Every single detail of this incredible and dangerous mission. It was a testament to the fact that the scientists were not just sending a test subject into the void. They were sending a pioneer, and they were doing everything in their power to make sure he came home safely. The couch would protect Ham from the violence of the launch, but the space capsule itself had to become a tiny, self-contained world, a bubble of life in the deadly vacuum of space. And the heart of this world, this was the collection of hidden, humming machines that would perform the work that the capsule, a small bell-shaped container, would be sealed on the launch pad. The air inside it was all Ham would have for his entire journey, and as he breathed, he would consume the oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide, a gas that is toxic in high concentrations. At the same time, a system of chemical scrubbers, using a substance called lithium hydroxide, would absorb the carbon dioxide he exhaled, keeping the air clean and safe. The next great challenge was temperature. In the vacuum of space, an object facing the sun can become incredibly hot, while the side facing away can become incredibly cold. The outside of the capsule was coated in a special, reflective material to deflect the harsh rays of the sun. Inside, a complex system of fans and coolants would circulate the air. The life support system was a silent and efficient guardian, a mechanical mother that would work tirelessly to keep its small, furry charge in a state of perfect, Earth-like comfort. Even as the world outside was a place of absolute and deadly extremes, it was a miniature Earth, a perfect, self-sustaining bubble of life that could exist for a short time in the most hostile environment imaginable. It was a testament to the incredible ingenuity of the human mind, its ability to understand the fundamental requirements of life and to recreate them in a small mechanical package, backup systems, to ensure that nothing could go wrong. To Ham, of course, this was all an invisible and unknowable magic. He would simply be in his small room, breathing the air, feeling a comfortable temperature, completely unaware of the complex and brilliant network of machines that were working silently, constantly, to keep him alive. He would not hear the hum of the fans or the soft hiss of the oxygen dispenser. He would only know that in this strange, new, and tiny world, He was safe, he could breathe, and he was comfortable. It was a small, mechanical womb, designed to carry him safely through the great, dark, and empty space between the worlds. In front of Ham's custom-made couch was the reason for his entire mission. It was the control panel, his workstation. It was a simple but crucial piece of technology. The interface through which he would communicate with the scientists on the ground. The tool through which he would prove that a mind could work in space. The panel was a small, gray, metallic box with 2 small lights and 2 levers. It was a simple, binary machine designed to ask a simple question and receive a simple answer. It was the first and most important computer interface to be used by a primate in space. The panel was connected to a complex system of sensors and telemetry equipment. Every time Ham correctly pulled the lever in response to a flashing light, a small electrical signal would be sent from the capsule back down to a great buzzing room full of scientists at Mission Control in Cape Canaveral. They would see his response as a simple blip on a screen, a line on a piece of paper. It was a confirmation that his brain was working, that his eyes were seeing, that his arm was moving, that he was able to make a conscious decision and perform a task, all while hurtling through the strange, weightless environment of space. Every action was a message, a scientific report sent back from the great. It was the puzzle box that he had mastered over many months of patient training. He understood its rules intimately. He knew that the flashing blue light was an invitation to act. He knew that a correct and speedy response would result in the satisfying clunk of the banana pellet dispenser, a reward for a job well done. He had a personal and very positive relationship with this small, blinking, and rewarding machine. It was a familiar and predictable presence in his new and often confusing life. He did not know that the fate of the future human space program rested on his small and ambitious mind of the human scientists, and it was a tool that allowed the clever, curious, and puzzle-solving mind of a chimpanzee to provide the answer. It was the first true instrument of interspecies communication in the history of space exploration. It was a testament to the shared intelligence of 2 different primates, one who had dreamed of the stars. The small, purpose-built world that contained Ham, his couch, and his control panel was the Mercury space capsule. It was a marvel of 1960s engineering, a tiny, cone-shaped vehicle designed to be just large enough to hold a single astronaut and the equipment necessary to keep him alive. Ham's capsule, designated Mercury Redstone 2, was one of a series of identical vehicles that would, in just a few short months, begin carrying the first American astronauts into space. His flight was the final, crucial, full-dress rehearsal. Before the main event, the capsule was a small and cramped space, only about 9 feet tall and 6 feet wide at its base. For a human astronaut, it would be a tight fit. For Ham, it was a small, but not uncomfortable, private room. The outside of the capsule was a shell of advanced, high-tech materials. The main structure was made of a lightweight and incredibly strong titanium alloy. But the most important part of its exterior was the heat shield. This was a thick, bowl-shaped layer of a special, ablative material, a mixture of fiberglass and phenolic resin that was attached to the wide bottom end of the capsule. The scientists knew that when the capsule re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, at a speed of thousands of miles per hour, the friction with the air would generate an incredible amount of heat, turning the capsule into a man-made meteor. The job of the heat shield was to absorb this immense heat, to literally burn away, layer by layer, carrying the destructive energy away and keeping the interior of the capsule and its precious passenger safe and cool. The capsule was also equipped with a complex system for its safe return. After it had re-entered the atmosphere and slowed to a safe speed, a series of small explosive charges would fire, deploying a small drogue parachute to stabilize the capsule. A few moments later, a much larger main parachute, a great, beautiful, red and white canopy, would be deployed, slowing the capsule's descent to a gentle splashdown in the ocean. The capsule was designed not just to go up, but to come back down in one piece. It was a complete, end-to-end transportation system, the first of its kind. To Ham, of course, the capsule was simply his world. It was a small, quiet, and strangely shaped room. He could not see the heat shield. He did not know about the parachutes. He only knew that this was his space, his nest. He had spent many hours in this capsule and in identical simulators during his training. He had grown accustomed to its close confines, to its strange smells, to its small, circular window. He did not know that he was sitting inside one of the most advanced and most important machines that his human companions had ever built. He only knew that it was a safe and familiar place, a place where his human friend had always assured him that everything would be all right. And finally, we look at the great and terrible engine that would lift this small capsule and its unwitting passenger from the ground and hurl it into the heavens. It was the Redstone rocket. It was a beautiful and a frightening thing, a tall, slender, and powerful spear of metal and fire. It was a direct descendant of the German V-2 rocket from the Second World War, a tool of destruction that had been repurposed for a mission of peaceful exploration. It was a sword that had been beaten into a plowshare, a weapon that was now being used to sow the seeds of a new interstellar age. Its single, powerful engine burned a mixture of liquid oxygen and a form of alcohol, a volatile and explosive combination that could generate over 78,000 pounds of thrust. It was a barely controlled explosion, a man-made volcano designed to spit a single, small piece of itself out of the Earth's atmosphere. The Redstone was not a perfect machine. It was a new and often unreliable piece of technology. The mission, just before Ham's Mercury Redstone 1, had been a famous and embarrassing failure. The rocket's engine had ignited. It had lifted itself 4 inches off the launch pad, and then it had shut down, settling back onto the pad as the capsule's escape tower jettisoned itself. It was a joke, a symbol of the immense difficulty of this new science of rocketry. The scientists and engineers had worked tirelessly to fix the problems, to ensure that Ham's rocket would perform perfectly. But they knew, with a deep and humbling certainty, that they were still at the very beginning of this great and dangerous journey. There were 1,000 things that could go wrong. The rocket could explode on the launch pad. It could veer off course. Its engine could fail to shut down at the proper time. Every single launch was a roll of the dice. This, then, was the great and terrible machine that Ham was about to ride. He would be strapped into his small, safe capsule, which would then be placed at the very tip of this great, powerful, and unpredictable spear of fire. He would be the small, brave, and intelligent mind, sitting on top of a great, loud, and brutally dumb engine of pure, explosive force. It is a perfect metaphor for the entire endeavor of space exploration. It is the story of a small, fragile, and intelligent consciousness choosing to strap itself to a great and powerful force that it has created but does not completely understand. All in the desperate, hopeful, and magnificent gamble of reaching for the stars. Ham, of course, knew nothing of this. He did not see the great rocket. He did not understand the immense power that was about to be unleashed just a few feet beneath him. He did not know that he was about to be entrusted to a machine that was a direct descendant of a weapon of war. He only knew that he was in his small, safe room, that the lights on his panel were blinking, and that he had a job to do. And in his simple, profound, and innocent trust, he was ready. You have been chosen. You are strapped securely into your custom-made fiberglass couch, a familiar and strangely comforting prison. You sit in the dark, quiet, and cool interior of the Mercury space capsule designated MR2, which now rests at the very top of the great white redstone rocket on the launch pad at Cape Canaveral, Florida. You have been here for hours, a small, patient, and living piece of cargo at the heart of an immense, mechanical beast. You can hear the faint, strange sounds from the outside, the distant, tinny voices of the human controllers over a loudspeaker, the soft hum of electronic equipment, the creak and groan of the great rocket as it is filled with thousands of gallons of supercooled liquid oxygen. You do not understand these sounds, but you can feel the energy of the moment, a sense of immense coiled tension in the air. Your human trainer gave you a final, reassuring pat on the head before they sealed the great, heavy hatch of the capsule. You are alone now, waiting for the great and terrible journey to begin. The final countdown begins. You hear a series of strange, new, mechanical sounds from the rocket beneath you. A loud clunk as an umbilical cord detaches, a deep, powerful hiss as a valve opens, and then a low, deep rumble begins. A vibration that you feel in your very bones. It is the sound of the rocket engine igniting, of thousands of gallons of fuel exploding in a controlled, continuous, and impossibly powerful blast. The vibration grows. The rumble becomes a deafening, all-consuming roar that shakes your entire world. And then you begin to move. It is not the fast, frantic movement of a running chimpanzee. It is a slow, heavy, and immensely powerful push, as if the hand of a giant is pressing you upwards into the sky. The rocket has cleared the tower. You are flying. The force of the acceleration, the G-force, is an immense and brutal thing. The feeling of a great, invisible weight presses you down, deep into your couch. It is a force you have felt before in the centrifuge, but this is different. This is real. The force builds to a crushing crescendo, reaching a peak of nearly 17 times the normal force of Earth's gravity. Your small, 3-year-old body, which weighs only 37 pounds on Earth, now weighs over 600 pounds. It is a struggle to breathe. It is impossible to move. You are a helpless passenger, a prisoner of the rocket's immense upward fury. You are a creature of the forest, a being designed to climb trees and swing on vines. And you are now riding a controlled explosion, a spear of fire into the unknown. The roar of the engine is a constant, deafening presence. The shaking and vibration of the capsule is a violent, chaotic dance. Your heart rate, which is being monitored by the scientists on the ground, has climbed to a frantic 220 beats per minute. You are terrified, but you are also a survivor. You are a creature of incredible resilience, and you endure. You ride the great roaring beast of fire, and you wait with a quiet and profound courage for the next strange and unknown chapter of your incredible journey. After 2 minutes and 17 seconds of a brutal, roaring, and bone-shaking ascent, a new and wonderful thing happens. The rocket engine shuts down. The violent, deafening roar is instantly replaced by a profound and absolute silence. The crushing weight of the G-forces vanishes in a fraction of a second, and you are now in a new and impossible world. You are weightless. It is a sensation that your brain, which has evolved for millions of years in a world of constant gravity, cannot comprehend. You feel a strange, floating, and disorienting lightness. The straps that held you so firmly in your couch are now just a gentle suggestion. A small, stray banana pellet, a forgotten reward from a training session, begins to float gently, slowly. In the air in front of your face, a small, yellow, and impossible moon. This strange and beautiful state of weightlessness will last for 6.5 minutes, and in this small window of time, you must do your job. Familiar blue light begins to flash on the control panel in front of you. It is the puzzle box. It is the game. And your training, the months and months of patient repetition, now takes over. You are no longer just a terrified passenger. You are a pilot. You have a task to perform. You look at the light, you process the information, and you act. You reach out your arm, a movement that feels strangely slow and effortless in the absence of gravity, and you pull the right-hand lever. A small green light confirms that you have performed the task correctly. A banana pellet dispenses from its tube, and it too begins to float gently in the cabin beside the first one. This is a moment of monumental, historical importance. On the ground, in the noisy, smoke-filled room of mission control, a single, small light has flashed on a console, and a room full of brilliant, nervous, and chain-smoking scientists erupts in a quiet, joyful cheer. You have done it. You have provided them with the single most important piece of data they could have hoped for. You have proven, with your simple, deliberate, and successful action, that a living mind can still work in the strange, disorienting, and alien environment of space. You have proven that an astronaut can still fly their ship. You have proven that the journey is possible. You, of course, know none of this. You are simply a good chimpanzee playing your game and earning your reward. The blue light flashes again, and you pull the lever again. You perform your task over and over with a calm, focused, and almost perfect efficiency. The scientists on the ground are in awe. Your reaction times in the zero gravity of space are only a fraction of a second slower than they were on the ground. You are not just a passenger. You are a professional. You are a true astrocamp, and you are performing your duty with a grace and a courage that is an inspiration to the human astronauts who will soon follow in your tiny, brave footsteps. Your mission was planned with a precision that was almost perfect. But in the new and dangerous science of rocketry, there is always the unknown. And on your historic flight, something went wrong. A small but significant malfunction occurred in the great Redstone rocket that was carrying you. The engine, which was supposed to shut down at a specific moment, burned for just a little too long. A valve that was supposed to close remained open for an extra fraction of a second. This tiny mechanical error had a massive consequence. The rocket, with its engine still firing, pushed you much higher and much faster than was ever intended. Instead of reaching a peak altitude of 115 miles, your small Mercury capsule was thrown to a height of over 157 miles. Instead of reaching a top speed of 4,200 miles per hour, you are now traveling at a speed of over 5,800 miles per hour. You were flying too high, and you were flying too fast. This malfunction would have a series of cascading and dangerous effects on the rest of your mission. The first and most pleasant of these effects was that your time in the beautiful, strange, and peaceful world of weightlessness was extended. You had more time to float, more time to observe the strange, new physics of your tiny metal world. But the scientists on the ground were not feeling peaceful. They were watching their data screens with a growing sense of alarm. They saw the rocket overthrust. They saw your trajectory was wrong. They knew that a higher, faster flight path would mean a much more violent, much steeper, and much more dangerous re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. The G-forces you would experience on your way down would be much greater than planned, and the place where your capsule would splash down in the Atlantic Ocean would be much, much further downrange than they had calculated. You were now a tiny, precious, and very expensive package that was in the process of being lost. You, in your small capsule, were completely unaware of this drama. You continued to perform your lever-pulling task with a calm and focused diligence. Your performance, a single, steady, and reassuring signal in a sea of worrying and anomalous data. You were a small, calm, and professional pilot, flying a ship that was, for a moment, out of control. Your continued, excellent performance, even in the face of this malfunction, was an even greater testament to your resilience and your training. You were not just performing in a perfect, simulated environment. You were performing in a real, flawed, and dangerous one. And you were proving, with every successful pull of the lever, that you truly did have the right stuff. After a longer than planned period of weightless flight, the next phase of your journey began. Your Mercury capsule, having reached the peak of its high, arching, suborbital trajectory, began to fall back to Earth, and now you had to face the most dangerous and most violent part of your mission, re-entry. The capsule, which was traveling at a speed of thousands of miles per hour, now began to hit the upper thin layers of the Earth's atmosphere, and the friction began. A deep, low, and powerful vibration began to shake your entire capsule, a shudder that grew more and more violent with each passing second. The gentle, silent peace of space was now replaced by a roaring, chaotic, and terrifying descent. Outside your small, circular window, a new and terrible sight appeared. The blackness of space was replaced by a brilliant, fiery, and impossibly bright orange and red glow. The heat shield on the bottom of your capsule, a marvel of human engineering, was now doing its job. It was absorbing the immense heat generated by the friction with the air, a heat that was thousands of degrees hotter than the inside of a furnace. The shield was literally burning away, layer by layer, carrying the deadly heat away from you. And the interior of your capsule, you were now a man-made meteor, a falling star, streaking across the sky in a blaze of glory. The G-forces returned, a crushing weight that was even more powerful and more violent than the forces of the launch. You were being slammed back into your couch with a force of over 14 gigaseconds. Your body once again weighing hundreds and hundreds of pounds. This was the moment of greatest danger. The scientists on the ground held their breath. Would the heat shield hold? Would the capsule's structure withstand the violent shaking? Would you, the small, brave passenger inside, survive this brutal and fiery return to Earth? The capsule bucked and shook, the roar of the air outside, a constant, deafening presence. You were being subjected to a series of forces that no living creature from your world had ever experienced. You were a creature of the gentle, green, and quiet jungle, and you were now riding a fireball through the sky. Your heart rate, once again, soared. Your body was being pushed to the very limits of its endurance. But you held on. You were protected by your couch. You were protected by the heat shield. You were protected by the brilliant and careful engineering of the small metal world that your human friends had built for you, and you survived. You passed through the fire, and you returned, a quiet and unwitting hero, back to the blue and gentle world you had left behind just a few short and terrifying minutes ago. After the violent and fiery ordeal of re-entry, the final phase of your journey was, by comparison, a gentle and peaceful one. As the capsule slowed in the thicker, lower parts of the atmosphere, a series of small explosive charges fired, deploying the parachutes. You felt a sudden, sharp jolt as the drogue chute opened, stabilizing your descent. A few moments later, another, gentler jolt as the great, red and white main parachute billowed open above you, a beautiful and welcome sight. Your terrifying high-speed fall was now a gentle, rocking, and peaceful descent, your capsule swinging slowly back and forth under the great, beautiful canopy of the parachute. The roar of re-entry was replaced by the gentle, familiar, and welcome sound of the wind whistling past your capsule. You were almost home. With a final, firm splash, your capsule landed in the warm, blue water of the Atlantic Ocean. The impact was a gentle one, cushioned by the water and the last of the air in your landing bag. And then there was a new kind of movement, a gentle, bobbing, and rocking motion as your small, buoyant capsule floated on the surface of the waves. The mission was over. You had done it. You had flown into space. You had performed your tasks, and you had returned safely to Earth. But your ordeal was not quite over. Because of the rocket's malfunction, you had landed 130 miles away from your planned splashdown point. You had overshot the target, and you were now alone, a small metal bottle bobbing in the middle of a vast and empty ocean. The recovery ships, which were waiting for you at the original splashdown point, were now racing to your new location. But it would take them time to reach you, and so you waited. You floated alone in your small, quiet, and gently rocking room for several long and uncertain hours. We can only imagine what you were thinking, what you were feeling. Were you scared? Were you confused? Were you simply tired? The scientists on the ground were worried. They had a signal from your capsule, so they knew you had survived the landing. But they also had a sensor that told them your capsule was taking on water. It was slowly but surely leaking. They were now in a desperate race against time to get to you before your small metal sanctuary sank to the bottom of the ocean. You, of course, knew nothing of this final, quiet danger. You simply waited, a small, patient, and lonely hero, floating in the middle of the great, wide sea. You had left one jungle, the jungle of green, and you had traveled to another, the jungle of the stars, and you had returned, and now you were simply waiting for your strange, new, and two-legged pack to come and find you, to open the door, and to finally, truly, welcome you home. The world, which was a roaring, fiery chaos just moments ago, is now a gentle, quiet, and rocking blue. Your small capsule has splashed down safely in the warm waters of the Atlantic Ocean. The violent shaking is over. The crushing G-forces are gone. The only movement now is the gentle, rhythmic bobbing of your capsule on the waves. The mission is over. You have survived. You do not know it, but you are a hero. You are a pioneer. You have just returned from a journey to the very edge of the world, a journey that no creature of your kind has ever taken before. You are floating alone in your small metal room in the middle of a vast, blue, and empty ocean, waiting for your human friends to come and find you. The hours pass. The sun is warm on the outside of your capsule. The gentle rocking of the waves is a soothing, calming motion. And then you hear it, a new sound. It is the deep, rumbling thrum of a great engine, the sound of one of the human recovery ships. They have found you. You hear the sounds of the human sailors outside your capsule. They're excited, shouting voices, a welcome and reassuring sound. You hear the clank of metal on metal as they attach a hook to your capsule. And then you feel a great lifting motion as you are hoisted from the sea and onto the deck of the great gray ship. The world is suddenly full of new sounds and new smells. The smell of the salty sea air, the smell of the human sailors, the sound of their cheering. And then the great, heavy hatch of your capsule is opened. A brilliant, beautiful, and almost painful ray of pure, natural sunlight floods into your small, dark room. You see the faces of the human sailors, and their expressions are not of scientific curiosity, but of pure, unadulterated joy and immense relief. They are so happy to see you. They are so happy that you are safe. You are unstrapped from your couch and gently, carefully lifted out of the capsule. You are a celebrity. The deck of the ship is crowded with sailors, with photographers, with doctors, all of them cheering and clapping for you. You are, of course, a little overwhelmed. In a natural gesture of submission and appeasement, a gesture you would show to a dominant chimpanzee in your old jungle home, you pull your lips back to show your teeth. To you, it is a sign that says, "I am not a threat. Please do not hurt me." But the humans, in their joy, interpret it as a great, beautiful, and heroic smile. The cameras flash, capturing this famous and iconic image. The image of the brave and happy astronaut, smiling for the world. And then, your human friends, your trainers, give you your first and most well-deserved reward. They hand you a bright, shiny red apple, and then half of an orange. After your long and terrifying journey, after the strange, dry taste of banana pellets, the simple, sweet, and juicy taste of the fresh fruit is the most wonderful thing you have ever experienced. You sit on the deck of the ship, surrounded by your cheering, two-legged pack, and you happily, messily, and triumphantly eat your apple. It is a moment of pure, simple, and profound joy. The hero has come home. Your journey was more than just a great adventure. It was a mission of profound scientific importance. And in your short 16.5-minute flight, you had provided the human scientists with a treasure trove of invaluable data. Back on the ground, in the great humming rooms of mission control, the scientists were analyzing the telemetry that your capsule had sent back to them. They looked at the data from your vital signs, the steady beat of your heart, your calm and regular breathing, and they knew that a living body could, in fact, withstand the immense stresses of a rocket launch, of re-entry, and of the strange new world of space. You had proven that the machine, the Mercury capsule, had worked perfectly to protect its precious living passenger. But the most important data you provided came from your own small, furry hand. The scientists looked at the data from your control panel, the record of your performance on the lever-pulling task, and they were in awe. They saw that even during the crushing G-forces of the launch, even in the strange and disorienting world of weightlessness, you had continued to do your job. Your reaction times were only a fraction of a second slower than they were on the ground. This was a monumental and historic discovery. It was the answer to the great central question that had been haunting the entire space program. Can a mind still work in space? Can a pilot still fly their ship? Your simple, focused, and professional performance was the undeniable proof. You had proven that cognitive function was not impaired by the strange new environment of space. You had proven that an astronaut could still think, could still make decisions, could still perform the complex tasks necessary to control their spacecraft. You had, in your own quiet and unassuming way, answered the single greatest question of the early space race, and your answer was a clear and resounding yes. Your successful mission was the final, crucial, and necessary green light. It gave the scientists and the engineers at NASA the confidence they needed to take the next and most important step. It gave them the confidence to put a human being on top of that same rocket and send him on that same journey. Just a few months after your own historic flight, on May 5, 1961, Alan Shepard would become the first American to fly into space, following the exact same suborbital trajectory that you had just pioneered. He was, in a very real sense, following in your footsteps. You were the one who had proven the path was safe. You were the one who had shown the way. You did not fly again. Your great and dangerous work was done, and you now entered a new and even stranger phase of your life. You were no longer just a chimpanzee. You were a hero. You were a celebrity. Your face, with its famous, toothy smile, was on the cover of newspapers and magazines all around the world. You were a symbol of American courage, ingenuity, and success in the great global competition of the space race. You were, for a time, one of the most famous and most beloved individuals on the entire planet. Your life was now a whirlwind of new and strange experiences. You were no longer a resident of a sterile laboratory. You were now a guest of honor. You appeared on television shows. You were taken to movie premieres. You even met the President of the United States. To you, of course, these were just more strange, confusing, and sometimes overwhelming experiences in a life that had been full of them. You did not understand the flashing lights of the cameras, the cheering of the human crowds, the great significance that these strange, two-legged creatures had placed upon your small shoulders. You were a simple creature of the jungle, a quiet and intelligent problem solver. And you had, through a series of bizarre and unimaginable events, become a global icon, a hero of a story that you could never truly understand. The humans looked at you, and they saw a brave pioneer, a furry astronaut who had touched the stars. You looked at them, and you saw your strange, new, and powerful pack, a pack that was now, for some reason, treating you with a new and profound sense of reverence and awe. You were a celebrity, but you were also still just a chimpanzee, and what you truly craved was not the applause of the crowds, but a return to a quieter, more peaceful, and more predictable way of life. And after your brief, strange, and dizzying tour as a global hero, your human friends, the scientists and doctors who had guided you on your great journey, gave you the final and greatest reward of all. They gave you a safe and peaceful place to call home. Your new home was the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. It was not the vast, green, and boundless freedom of your first home, the jungle of Cameroon, but it was a good home. You were given a large, comfortable, and safe enclosure, with trees too, climb and grass to lie in, and you were no longer alone. You were introduced to a new family, a new troop of fellow chimpanzees. For the first time in many years, you were able to once again experience the simple, profound, and deeply necessary comfort of your own kind. You could once again speak your own language, the language of grunts and hoots and gestures. You could once again engage in the great and deeply satisfying social ritual of grooming. You were a part of a family again. You lived at the National Zoo for 17 long and peaceful years. You were a beloved and famous resident, a living piece of history that thousands of human families would come to see. They would look at you with a sense of wonder, and they would tell their children your incredible story. They would say, "That is Ham. He was the first. He went to space." You, in turn, would look back at them with your own quiet, intelligent, and patient gaze. You were a gentle and good-natured creature, and you seemed to enjoy the attention, the company of your new chimpanzee family, and the simple, predictable rhythms of your new life. After your time in Washington, you were moved to the North Carolina Zoo, to a larger, more naturalistic habitat, a great open-air enclosure that was even more like your first jungle home. Here, you lived out the final years of your life, a respected and beloved elder. You were a creature who had lived 3 distinct and incredible lives. You had been a wild and free chimpanzee of the great African forest. You had been a brave and famous pioneer of the new age of space exploration. And now you were a quiet, peaceful, and contented retiree, a living legend enjoying the simple pleasures of a life well lived. You were a creature who had experienced the best and the worst of the human world. You had been taken from your home. You had been subjected to strange and terrifying experiments. But you had also been treated with a deep and genuine affection by your trainers. And you had been celebrated as a hero by an entire nation. Your story is a complex and a poignant one, a testament to the strange and often contradictory relationship between mankind and the animal kingdom. You lived a long and, by all accounts, a happy and peaceful life after your great adventure. And when your time finally came to an end, your human companions, the people of the nation you had so bravely served, decided to give you one final and very great honor. You were not forgotten. Your body was not simply left to decay. You were treated with the same respect and reverence that is given to the greatest of human heroes. Your remains were laid to rest, not in a simple grave, but at the International Space Hall of Fame in Alamogordo, New Mexico, just a few miles from the Holloman Air Force Base, where you had undergone your strange and historic training. Your final resting place is a place of honor, a museum dedicated to the brave pioneers, both human and non-human, who have ventured into the great, dark, and unknown frontier of space. Your grave is marked with a simple, beautiful, and dignified plaque, a final tribute to your incredible life and your historic contribution. You are remembered, you are honored, you are celebrated, not just as a test subject, not just as a data point, but as a true and important pioneer, the first American hero of the space race. And so, our story ends. It is the story of a small chimpanzee from the jungles of Africa who was chosen for a great and terrible purpose. It is the story of a creature who was taken from his world and shown a new one, a world of stars and of a beautiful, blue, and distant earth. It is the story of a quiet and unwitting hero who, with his simple courage and his calm intelligence, paved the way for all the human astronauts who would follow, who took the first great and dangerous step for all of primate kind. Let us remember him now, Ham, the astrachimp, the first mind to leave the world. A good and gentle creature who flew into the great, silent darkness, and who, against all odds, came home. And as we remember his incredible journey, let us now find our own quiet, peaceful, and final resting place, a place of deep and well-deserved slumber.